Welcome everyone, I'm Francine Farber and I'm excited to be sitting here today with a conductor, composer, poet, and videographer of the world premiere of a choral work called 100 Years of a Thousand Tries. Since I'm a past president and a longtime director on the board of the League of Women Voters, you may be wondering, what in the world does the League have to do with presenting a musical event? Well, 2020 was the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage in the United States, when the 19th Amendment to the Constitution gave women the right to vote. And the League had planned a variety of activities in various media to celebrate this event, some of which actually happened, but many of which were shut down or postponed by COVID-19. So we are fortunate to have taped a modified performance of this beautiful work with a smaller cast. But we're here today to discuss how the world premiere of a choral work happened to be produced in Fresno. This event is also sponsored by the Fresno Arts Council and the Fresno County Office of Education. To explain the development of this very special project, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Artistic Director and Conductor of the Fresno Community Chorus, Ana Hamre. Ana became Director of Choral Activities at Fresno State in 1999 until her recent retirement. She continues to conduct the Fresno Community Chorus, Master Chorale, and Coro Piccolo. These choirs frequently collaborate with other musical ensembles, especially the Fresno Philharmonic Orchestra. Her work has taken her beyond the United States to Mexico, China, Italy, Austria, and England, among others. Ana, please tell us, how did you develop this idea for your choral work and your contacts with the other artists who worked on the project? How do you put together something like this, especially during a pandemic?
The pandemic upended everything for us. Before 2020, I would go into the fall first rehearsal, and I pretty much knew everything that would have to go on every rehearsal for the next 9 months. And then March 10th, 2020 came, and we were at rehearsal, and the board said, we need to shut down because it was so dangerous, and we did. And since that time, we have pivoted every single week. We decide what's happening next. And this all came about during it. And I frankly, it had so many iterations, I don't remember the whole sequence of the whole thing, except that it landed here. Let's see, Janet Baker connected us. And we have a composer who was still at the time in Korea, but she's kind of our composer in residence. And we have this exceptional poet who also is with us, and they've collaborated before, and so everything was just organic. It would just be a lot of phone calls, a lot of Zooming, a lot of emails, and ideas would come about. And then they said, and you gotta meet Jason. And so that's how we've got Jason in the whole mix. And there were so many steps and so many side trips on the way, but it was a beautiful relationship that just kind of came to be, and it was the one miraculous thing that came out of this pandemic for us. It was really exciting.
You mentioned Janet Baker, who put us together, and Janet is a member of the League of Women Voters, who I really didn't know very well at all. I don't think I had ever spoken to her previously, but we happened to sit together at one of the centennial events, and I told her I was hoping to have a musical event as well, but I didn't have one planned yet. And a light bulb went on, and that's how she connected us to Ana. So I'd like to introduce the rest of our artists today. Jungman Sora, composer, Gladys Ruiz, poet and lyricist, and Jason Hopper, videographer. Jungman Sora has been recognized for her work as composer and collaborative pianist in both Korea and the United States. She has served as staff pianist at Fresno State and the Willow Mennonite Church, and currently she serves as a pianist and director of the Music Academy at the Korean Presbyterian Church of Fresno. So, Jungmin, please tell us about your collaboration with Ana. Is it true that you started working on this when you were still in South Korea and then continued here? And what inspired you? Did Gladys tell you about her poem before you wrote the music? We'd just love to hear about your process.
So yes, I was still in Korea when Ana contacted me about and told me about this project. and I thought it was so meaningful to just be part of this women's suffrage movement in the U.S. So Janet sent me a lot of links and just a lot of things to study, and I was looking for text for my music because I need to ponder on the text first before I.
What do you mean things to study? What kind of things were they?
All those suffrage movements links.
Oh, information.
Yes,
about
information
women's
available
history.
online. The history, all those, the music they sang at the march, all those information. She sent that to me, and I still needed the text that I wanted to work on. And at that time, Glad emailed me because I was still in Korea, and then she emailed me. We were just talking about our regular, collaboration stuff, and then I asked her, I was working on this project, I still needed a text, and she graciously agreed on providing us a text. So that's how I started all this together with Glad.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get that first theme for your music? Did it just come to you in a dream, or did you have to work hard?
Well, after Glad sent me her draft, I just read it and read and read and rewrote it on the paper and just tried to think what it means to me, and then what it would mean to all the singers who are going to sing this piece. So, well, it's not like, a tune just comes to my mind. So when I think about the text a lot, then I get the feeling of the text and like colors of a text and the scenes, the picture of a text. So that's how I start. So I have this, so maybe this kind of just atmosphere for the whole music. It's not just a single note by note, but just the whole picture and what this music should have. So those big ideas, and then I go narrow down to a little things.
So that's interesting because you mentioned a lot of visual imagery, and you take the visual imagery and you translate it into sound. So you're using both modalities. That's very interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Glady Ruiz traverses the worlds of both words and science, teaching high school kids by day and writing whenever the spirit moves her. She holds a Master of Fine Arts in Poetry, and she's published in journals and anthologies. Glady was born in Thailand and raised briefly in the United States, but spent most of her life between the Philippines and Hong Kong before coming to settle in California's Central Valley 21 years ago. Tell us about your collaboration with Jungman. How did you work together and yet be physically so far apart? And what's the deeper meaning of your words? And perhaps you'll read a few of them to us, because they are beautiful.
Thank you, Francine. It's hard to believe that it's been a little over a year and a half since the inception of this project. We were talking about, it was a sandwich with Anna and Janet, and then she introducing your vision for a musical, and then she I'm emailing over 5,800 miles to South Korea. And then I remember being so starved. It was June, and you're in the pandemic and there's just this emptiness. And so I thought, hey, I've worked with Jungman before. I'm going to reach out and see how she is. And she had moved back, so it was a little bit sad. So I emailed her and she said, oh, this is what I'm doing. And what she sent were words. So while I teach science, words spin my head. She sent me the words of Ida B. Wells and Lucy Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, and she had quilted together everything she had studied from listening to, she had gone into the archives that had been sent to her, and you could see that immersion into the words that these women have given to us over the years. And all of a sudden I thought, Glady, what have you done? This is bigger than you can handle. And then I thought, these are words that need to be put together. And they did find their way into Suzanne Simard's 30-year lifetime research and study on the mother hub tree. And the mother hub tree is one that through each year and each ring of that surrounds, that builds her trunk, has in it the wisdom that brings just the right chemical message, the nourishment, the nectar, if you will, and sends it down through this underground network with fungi called mycorrhizae, and it sends it to the saplings that allow them to not just live, but thrive and flourish up to a point where they too then can give back. You know, I think of being here in the valley and feeling really nourished by the mother trees amongst us.
Now, did you know about this scientific research as a scientist yourself before doing research for this poem?
Yes.
So that wasn't
It was not new. However, the timing is such that Suzanne Simard has come to the foreground with her book that was released in May, where she, Finding the Mother Tree, was published after there have been 4 other authors who have taken her work and cited it and written their own books. So while I'm a science teacher for my bread and butter, my head is spun by words, and so this time of COVID, having us, the theme of perseverance that these women of suffrage, you know, so disparate in their ways, yet pulled together by that one vision of having their words count, having their voices be of consequence. The image of a mother to a daughter sending her message on could not be more well encapsulated by Suzanne Simard's Mother Tree, which spans the ages. I mean, over thousands of years, it is that wisdom that is passed on, so you know exactly what it is to send. But I guess the beauty of it is that those of us who do receive that nectar, we are enlarged by it and we become part of that whole. And so, you know, Jason, when you added the visual to it, I first listening to Jungman's putting music to the words, it felt that my little work found an enlarged meaning with Jungman's taking it in, and then furthered by the visual that, you know, Jason so superimposed on. I'm sure he'll tell the story of how he had to travel and finding the tree that we did find.
Put many miles on, didn't you?
really. Yeah. Well, and it's time for Jason to tell us a little bit about what he did then, I think. Jason Hopper is an educator, trainer, speaker, and strategic leadership consultant. He currently works as a career technical education teacher at Hanford West High School, and he designed and photographed the initial video that accompanies 100 Years of 1,000 Tries. Jason, I know you spent untold hours on this project. How did you decide what to film? How much interaction did you experience with the other artists? And tell us about all your trees.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I came into this project, and I don't know, I think I was the last to join the table as far as a creator goes, I realized that there were so many creators already putting their fingerprints onto this, and it sounded like I would be one of the last to kind of hold it before we take it to the audience, and that was really stressful. A lot of anxiety, thinking I have all of this intention and energy, and then you couple this with the deep meaning of the centennial, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? And so, you know, but I didn't want to back away. I'm constantly challenging my own students to work on their video projects and to step into places where they're uncomfortable, and to to meet with others, and I'm very seldomly given the opportunity to collaborate with other artists. And expect, you know, in my world, we make commercials, we make, you know, informational videos, we make announcements. We don't get to make art very often. We're much more pragmatic.
So we made you uncomfortable.
So I was uncomfortable, but I was excited. And so we got onto a phone call, and we were talking about the project, and I heard some of the vision, the background. I was able to read the words, and I was able to hear a little bit of the music. It's MIDI music, so it sounds a lot like someone pushing buttons on a touch-tone phone. And so there's a lot to the imagination, and that's what I had, was a lot left to be imagined. And we were talking about different ways to visualize. We talked about the idea of having the choral members video themselves and making some sort of a composite of, that was very popular in 2020, where everybody was doing a lot of virtual meetings, and we said, let's make a combination. Well, that's an easy decision. Yes, let's do that. Let's involve all of them, let their faces show, let their voices ring. And about 2 weeks later, I finally got inspiration for what I wanted to do. So I got back in the truck and drove out and shot a couple more shots. And that was the idea that I thought, hey, originally I thought, well, we'll take some pictures of the women's suffrage movement, and we'll superimpose them somehow, like a slideshow. We'll do it easy. And then I had this idea, no, it's about this nectar, this nurture, this power, this resurgence that is in the trees, and it's a network that connects all of these. And so it's the movement 100 years ago was this significant moment, but it's not gone and done. It's just back in the sap, back into the flow of what we're experiencing today. And it's an ongoing cycle. It's all this power, and it's exciting. And I visualized these photos kind of superimposed on the trees, and I didn't know how I would do it, and I didn't have time to do it right. And so I did my best, but it was the idea of embedding this power into the trees. And so drove back in there, spent more hours focusing on bark. That was probably the weirdest shoot I've ever done. I probably spent about 3 or 4 hours just focusing on bark. The other part that was really amazing is I expected most of the video submissions to come in to be, you know, people standing in front of the camera and kind of giving a low effort trial, just like we were used to seeing people low effort in front of their Google Meets and Zoom meetings. But the choral members did such an amazing job of cinematically, and I got 2 or 3 different takes, different perspectives, different locations. I had so much to choose from, and so it really was kind of a decision. Well, how do I fit all this stuff together? You know, how do I make it all work? And that was the fun part. But as soon as I heard the music, it all just kind of locked in and became one.
So I didn't realize you're saying that the video that I saw, the singers shot their own parts themselves.
They did.
I did not realize that at all.
Oh, you thought I was driving around.
And it's so flowing and beautiful that one doesn't get the sense at all of, you know, parts being put together as a whole. It just flows so very
thank you.
nicely. Yeah, that's really beautifully done. Thank you. Does anybody have any comments that they want to make about this to Jason or each other or Anna?
Well,
or?
You know, this is so interesting when we talk about, and here you talk about all your creative works. We argued about your poetry a lot. Jungman and I would talk about, remember when you would send me drafts of it? I said, no, I think this is the important word Gladys making, or this is the important syllable. And one time you said, no, it has to be this. And then I realized afterwards, and I said, well, it's her piece, I have to let her go with it. And then it was all done, I realized, oh my goodness, I missed the whole thing. Of course it had to be like that, because that was the striving motive, that da-dum, bottom, bottom. Well, and at the time I didn't realize that, but it was just perfect. But we argued a lot, you know, what does she really mean here? It was really a fun project.
Well, now that you've heard from the artists and understand, I hope, the process that resulted in this production, we hope you'll be really eager to watch the video, and you will do it with a greater appreciation of the work and artistry that went into it. The video was made during the pandemic when the artists couldn't come together with the musicians and rehearse en masse. So the original video is stripped down but unexpectedly beautiful and moving. We want to thank our sponsors for their support. the League of Women Voters, the Fresno Arts Council, and the Fresno County Office of Education, and all of these artists who gave their talents so very generously to this project. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Francine.
Thank you.
See the aspens at the crossroads and the sapling down the lane. Beneath that dark and hardened ground, silent rivers flow. And the aspen sends her nectar to nourish seedlings in the shade. And year by year, through every season, the root of her persistence draws water from the deep, bringing healing to the shallows to share, be fed, and feed. Listen, daughter, the voice you lift now rides on the words of those who came before you, 100 years of 1,000 tries.